who's a former director of BP Green Energy. Since then, he co-founded Second Nature, which advises companies on sustainability. So, listening to David Shukman's report, can we forget about wind and other kind of forms of renewable energy now that we've got so much oil and we've got shale gas and the like?
No, I mean, I think it's pretty disturbing to see these pictures, and I'm sure many of your viewers will be as concerned as I am about pollution. And, that's polluted land, polluted air, and polluted water. And the question is, what are we going to do about pollution?
Well, what is your answer then?
Well, I think we've got to come to an awakening, hopefully sooner rather than later, that in order to have a sustainable future for our children and their children, that we need to stop burning fossil fuels, or at least slow down the burning of fossil fuels, because it's causing air pollution, which is obviously not good for human health. It's causing extreme weather events. We know, here in London today, 30 degrees. This is already the hottest summer we've had in decades. In the last 15 years, we've had 10 of the hottest years on record. So these are real problems facing us, and we have to come to a decision about what kind of a future do we want.
But it is very disruptive to say, right, we've got to move from a fossil fuel economy to a kind of a sustainable economy. When the economies of the world are in such a parlous state, no one is going to want to do that. It's interesting, isn't it, the extent to which kind of the green agenda is talked about so much less since the banking crisis, for example.
Well, we have to look back in history. In 1800, of course, the economy of the world depended on human slavery, human energy. But through the works of William Wilberforce and Abraham Lincoln, we decided to abolish slavery. We decided it wasn't the right thing to do to have slavery. The Stone Age, I might just add...
You're not drawing a... Hang on. You're not drawing a parallel between the moral unacceptability of slavery and the moral unacceptability of burning fossil fuels.
Well, the irony of this is actually what replaced slavery was the industrialized era. So fossil fuels replaced slavery. And at the time, the captains of industry, like the British East India Company, Charles Grant was the chief executive. He argued, you couldn't abolish slavery, he said to William Wilberforce, it'll ruin the world's economy. But William Wilberforce managed to persuade Charles Grant to agree that there was a better way. And guess what the better way was? Fossil fuels.
But if you're going to say, right, we've got to get rid of fossil fuels, then surely you have to be able to say to people, we can provide alternatives cheaply. And the problem is, you can't.
Yes, I'm afraid you can. So the truth is that in Germany today, they've achieved grid parity, which means the same price for renewables as for fossil fuels. The reason they've managed to do that is they've accelerated the intersection of the cost curves between fossil fuels, which is rising in cost, and renewables, which is declining very quickly in cost. So solar PV has come down 70% in the last 3 years, for example.
But you could then say, well, OK, we've got shale gas, and if you get better technology that can get oil out of the ground more cheaply, then actually those cost curves don't quite cross over in the way that you suggest.
Which is back to what kind of future do we want? The fact is we're addicted to fossil fuels. So, the question is, how are we going to break our human addiction?
Do you see any sign that we're getting close to breaking that addiction?
Unfortunately not. Sometimes I'm more hopeful than other times, and when we have international agreements like Doha, they agreed to reduce the world's emissions. Every country in the world now has agreed to reduce carbon emissions.
OK, Charles, we have to leave it there. Really interesting to talk to you. Fascinating.